Good morning. I haven't had all my coffee yet, so I may be just a little bit fuzzy. I apologize in advance. As you can see on this title slide, we're going to talk about subject, we're going to talk about theme, and we're going to talk about some myth. The biggest discussion of myth will come in the next slide presentation, but there will be a short mention of it and a short discussion of it at the tail end of this one. You can also see from the subtitle, there's a little bit of discussion of the knife of never letting go, kind of a reminder of what we talked about there, and then we're going to apply the principles of what we talked about there to the Hunger Games. I want to begin with just a quick reminder of the difference between plot and theme. Remember that plot is the ordered sequence of events in the novel. It's what happens. It's what you write about when you write your summary. Theme is what readers will say the book is about. It is the point that the novel attempts to make about a particular subject or topic. If you go back to plot, it's going to be driven by the conflicts. Those conflicts can be person versus person. They can be person versus self. They can be person versus the environment. And in this case, environment, because most of us don't live in the raw state of nature, can include societal conflicts. It's those conflicts and the resolution of those conflicts that usually allows the novel to start becoming about something else and about a particular subject, and then it will make a statement about that subject. I use the term subject because subject is usually a single word in a short phrase, and theme is an observation about the subject. So the subjects can be love or obsession or cultural rules, for example, sending children off to die in an arena, loss of an innocence, and vengeance. The theme will be an observation about that subject. It's not going to be a moral of a story. It's not going to be a hard and fast rule. You'll notice that my sample has the word may, for example. And so you're looking at a complete sentence for theme, and that complete sentence is about some of the subjects from the novel. Many times the subjects from the novel are going to be determined by the characters and the conflicts. Going to the knife of never letting go. We talked about how the noise was basically a stand-in for social media, for the internet. Todd's almost a man and wanting to become a man was a discussion of maturity. The Eden archetype was innocence and loss of innocence. Certainly there was the discussion of freedom. They came to the New World for freedom of religion. They didn't seem to have that. There was, at least not in Prentisstown. The equality argument, men and women and how they should be treated. Aaron and all of his actions were certainly about religion and the abuse of religion. There was a big discussion about truth and what Todd knew to be true and what wasn't true, and even how the noise presented truth. Ben gave lots of speeches about hope. Because of her ability to impersonate voices, Viola gave us some ideas about identity, autonomy, perhaps as freedom, but at a personal level. Certainly, Mayor Prentice was about using and abusing power. Fear and the corruption of power were present throughout the novel. All of those were subjects. I think in class we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the topics that the Hunger Games covers. I hope students are going to give me topics. But certainly, I think if you take a look at the Hunger Games and things, there's the totalitarian government and the overreach of government. There's what happens when we treat people as other, not as humans. Certainly, the idea of treating kids as a tool to remind the Pan Am of the power of the capital meant that they were being seen as means to an end, not as an end unto themselves. So they were not being seen as fully human. Um, the early discussion of Katniss's life emphasizes her poverties, and Rue and Thresh coming from a poor district that emphasizes poverty. Certainly, you could argue about resilience. Katniss keeps coming back time after time, even though she's burned and even though she's hurt, and even Peeta comes back time after time. Again, hope, um, honesty. Katniss is certainly not honest about the romance. And then there's a lot of discussion about appearance versus reality throughout the whole thing. And I think, let's be honest, there's a whole big subject of entertainment. The Hunger Games were entertaining for the residents of the capital. They may not have been entertaining for the people who had to watch their children die, but the people in the capital found them entertainment. And so the role of entertainment, I think, was a big uh, element of this novel as well. We're not going to talk about theme until probably your last daily writing or so, where I ask you to write about the theme. But when we do, I would like you to come back and think about these 4 or 5 bullet points here. The determination of theme should consider all of the literary elements an author has used in the work. Avoid the cliches as much as possible when you're writing theme. Love conquers all is not a theme. Love conquers all is a cliche. It may be stated directly in the literary work, and I'm going to give you an example of that in a couple of slides. The most important one, I think, is the bottom one. It's a general statement that applies to readers, not characters in the novel. So theme doesn't mention the characters' names or plot details. That just that isn't part of it. Theme is about us in the real world. What points are made in the real world about totalitarianism, or otherization, or dehumanization, or poverty, or honesty, or hope, or reality TV? Theme is about our world. The novel is a way to think about our world in a new and different way. Like I said, we're not going to be doing this one right now, but as you're reading, this is the second class day. As you're reading, think about what points is the Hunger Games making about the subjects that it covers. And I think a second thing that's really important is, are the points they're making valid for its intended audience, the 12 to 20-year-olds? Are the audience, can those points be made valid for an older audience or perhaps even a younger audience? I talked just a few minutes ago about the idea that the themes can be directly stated. And I think the idea that's happening here of themes being talked about in a way that uh, can make people think some ways, the idea of, I don't want them to change me in there, turn me into some kind of monster I'm not. The idea of not letting adversity change you into a monster could be a theme. It seems like Katniss was trying to hold on to her humanity throughout this whole thing. She got that from Peeta. The idea that it's part of humanity to strive to be something more than a piece of the games. Those kind of direct statements can easily be shown to be themes of the novel. And so as you're reading, think about direct statements that take the whole novel into account that can be used as a form of theme. Sometimes they are stated directly. I think it happens more often in short story where they have less time to develop everything, but I think it can happen in a novel. And remember, young adult novels, adolescent literature, is supposed to be didactic. Not supposed to be, but is didactic. And because it is didactic, it's going to kind of get preachy, and it's going to kind of push people into or push readers towards a certain point of view. And this is one of the ways it does it with statements that can almost be directly put into the form of theme. Next, you can take a look at Katniss's actions to back up that statement. She is going to go out in her own way when she thinks she's going to die. She will be undefeated when she thinks she is going to die. And because of that, I think it's important to understand it goes back to those quotations, it builds on those quotations, and it's easier now to take those quotations and put them into theme because Katniss's actions back that up. Earlier, I talked about reality TV being part of the subject matter of this novel, and that perhaps it is making a statement about the novel. There was an article in the New Yorker a while back, I think it was when the movie came out in 2014, about the prevalence of dystopian literature or dystopian motifs in young adult literature. And Laura Miller, the person who wrote this particular article, has the sentence you see on the slide. The Hunger Games could be taken as an indictment of reality TV, but only someone insensitive to the emotional tenor of the story could regard social criticism as the real point of Collins's novel. The Hunger Games is not an argument. It operates like a fable or a myth, a story in which outlandish and extravagant figures serve as conduits for universal experiences. In other words, what she's trying to say here is that the Hunger Games should be taken as folk literature, as folklore, as something stemming from a feeling in the general population, at least what was being felt in 2014, about reality TV, about its effect on us. And I think if you take a look, you're all of a sudden seeing that this novel is really being stacked, that there are a lot of things stacked onto this novel. It starts out as a typical Bildungsroman, except it's about a girl instead of a young boy. But it's following this idea of she's almost an adult. She and Gail talk about running away, except they have these responsibilities. She is on this long journey. Yes, it's a forced journey, but she's on this journey, and as the course of this journey, she is going to find herself. There's even a big direct quotation about as long as you find yourself, you will never starve. It's clearly the idea of going on this journey to find self, find maturity. Obviously, it's dystopian. A bunch of young kids are being forced to kill each other for entertainment and also to remind all of the districts that the capital is in charge. There's the romance element of it. We'll deal with that in a separate presentation. But there's a guy meets girl, guy loses girl, except again, we're going to flip it around. Girl meets guy, girl likes guy in forest, guy in arena says he loves her. We have complication, we have romance. Sci-fi isn't a huge element of this thing, but certainly the tracker jackers and the creation of the mockingjays and the technology that allows all of the things in the arena to happen, and the projecting the faces up in the sky and all of that are scientifically, are sci-fi. We're looking at the tech, we're looking at the science. And now we are going to stack fable on top of that, or myth on top of that. And I think that's a lot of work for a novel to carry. And I think we have to really take a look at whether it is done successfully or whether it is done at all. So the next presentation is going to be starting with this slide. And we're going to try to figure out how Collins creates myth, how Collins created a fable. But I do think that it's important to understand that this quotation, again from Laura Miller, that children don't run the world, and teenagers especially feel the sting of this, points to what happens. Here are these kids yanked from their homes and forced to fight in the arena. This is the extreme idea of being pulled out of your comfort zone, okay? But she is talking again about this idea that in for the adolescent, this is what they feel every day. And we'll probably start talking about this quotation at the start of class next time when all of you are in there. So we're going to pick this up about, is Miller seeing teenage years accurately? I hope you all have a good day, and we will see you in class on Friday.